But I mean, there's a chance Tennessee could be 11-1, 10-1 after Saturday by going down to Columbia. What's that mean just for the growth of this program under Josh Heupel?
Yeah, it's massive. Like if you were talking 11-1 in August, then you're probably talking 10-2, 11-1 every August because you want to, and that's perfectly fine. But
Yeah.
in August, I did not see 10-2. Swain and I talked about it on our radio show. Could 10-2 happen? Yeah, if a lot of things broke Tennessee's way was our opinion at the time, and I undersold what Tennessee would be, and I changed my opinion as the season went along. Like as the year has continued, games in the preseason that I thought Tennessee would lose that week, I've picked Tennessee because by Florida week, I thought, okay, this team might be a little different in the way the game went and concerns I had with LSU in the preseason. I thought LSU would beat Tennessee that week. I thought Tennessee would win, not by that margin, but I
Yeah.
thought Tennessee was a different team. So this is a team that has surprised me because the offensive line has been so much better than expected. The defense at times has been better than I expected. And Hendon Hooker and Jalen Hyatt, they've just been terrific. So a chance to get to 11-1. I mean, in August, if I told you 10-2, just about every Tennessee fan would have said, you got it. They would have taken the deal. Now 10-2 would be a massive disappointment. And credit to Tennessee for making that happen.
Tennessee will finish off the regular season on the road for back-to-back games for the first time since 1939. That's kind of hard to believe. I saw that in Tennessee's game notes this week. It's also going to be the first time they've played back-to-back road night games. Saturday is going to be the first time Tennessee's played a road night game this season. Last time Tennessee played on the road, it didn't go all according to plan. How do you think Tennessee will do in terms of dealing with the crowd noise? That place can get pretty rowdy there for home ball games.
Yeah, probably better because Jalen Carter will not be playing in front of that home
Yes.
crowd for South Carolina. Neither will Stetson Bennett. Neither will Keely Ringo. Those are guys that made a big difference in how that last road trip went for Tennessee. Tennessee needs to be ready. Tennessee needs to be mentally prepared. But, Eric, I'll be honest. I think Tennessee can afford to make mistakes, whether it's pre-snap penalties because they're affected by the crowd or even a turnover or two, and still be fine because I don't think that South Carolina has the firepower to keep up with what Tennessee wants to do. Now, going in, obviously, Josh Heupel's not going to say, you know what, guys, we're good here. We can mess around. They're not going to think that at all. Their thought, I believe, based on the Missouri game, is we need to be as impressive as we possibly can. And I think that Tennessee will be. And by the way, that performance against Georgia with what that environment was helps prepare you a little bit for what is an underrated environment and what Tennessee's going to face. But just line the two teams up, and I don't think it's close. Vegas doesn't think it's close, and I don't think it will be by the time the game is done on Saturday.
Been listening to a lot of Josh and Swain this week, more than I normally do. I've been in the car a lot lately. But of course, you can always listen on the Sports Radio WNML app if you want to listen to those guys, or on YouTube, you can watch as well.
I highly recommend the show.
Yeah, right. Make it your second listen, right?
Yeah.
Or your third listen, right behind Locked On Vols and Locked On Sports Today. Hey, heard you guys. A big part of your show the other day was, people calling in, people texting in. There were some comments made from national media about Tennessee running up the score. And that kind of leads me into whenever you guys spoke with David Ubben, and we heard it in the last segment about does this really matter or whatever. I don't know if it really matters, but if I'm Josh Heupel, I'm like, I'm going to do everything I possibly can control and go out and do to try to get into the college football playoffs. I can't believe this was even a conversation this week. Again, this isn't Pee Wee football. This isn't high school football. Your backup quarterback was in the football game and led 2 touchdown drives. Your entire second unit was in the football game. To me, it's just kind of like whatever. What was kind of the response you guys got throughout your 3-hour program the other day?
Yeah, I don't particularly care either what a team does. If Tennessee decided to run out the clock, just run the ball, then take a knee, that's fine too. Throwing the deep ball to me to Squirrel White, that's what's a little different compared to other situations. It was a pretty deep ball, and fans got their money's worth with the price of admission for 60 minutes because watching Joe Milton throw a football is something. And I think something that is creating excitement for next year. Worry about this year first, of course. Yeah. But I was surprised it was as big of a deal. Part of my thought was, man, it's been a long time since Tennessee was in this kind of position because the only time running the score up was brought up was likely an opponent doing that to Tennessee. I will say, if you didn't like opponents doing that to you at any point in time, then it can be a little hypocritical to like doing it to other opponents, unless it's returning the favor to the same team or coach, which this is not. But I just don't think it's a big deal. I don't think it plays a big role. Like if Tennessee had taken a knee and won 59-24, I don't think it makes any difference at all in Tennessee's playoff chances versus 66-24. So I think it's pretty simple. Josh Heupel said, "Hey, we're going to put up as many points as we can. We're going to call the game normal. Joe's going to throw a bomb. Squirrel's probably going to catch it, and we're not going to apologize. We're going to go score as many points as we can." And Eli Drinkwitz probably didn't like it, but he also didn't make a big deal out of it. So I would give him credit for that on that end. And we took a call that was my favorite, I think, on Monday, talking about it after the game. It was a caller named Margot, and she said, paraphrasing, "I didn't know the rules said that we have to play the game for both teams." And it made me laugh out loud. So that was my favorite one. So just call it what it was. Tennessee was playing until the end. It ran the score up on Missouri, and it's not going to apologize for it.
And I still think what happened against Missouri at the end of the game is different from what happened against UT Martin at the end of the game. Like, that might be Heupel trying to stick it to Jason Simpson. This is Tennessee trying to get in the college football playoffs. And both times, again, you did not have Hendon Hooker in the football game. So it is what it is. We saw the playoff rankings released last night. We saw it the night before that, or the week before that, and the week before that. At the end of the day, what, in your opinion, just is the easiest path for Tennessee to get into the college football playoffs?
Well, I think TCU losing would be a big deal because that's going to knock the Horned Frogs back without a chance to be in my opinion. If everybody in the Pac-12 has 2 losses, that's good. So I think that would help Tennessee. But I think TCU is the bigger deal. If you could assume a loss, I would say TCU losing in the Big 12 title game. So they're not Big 12 champs and they have a loss, and it just knocks them back. USC as a 1-loss Pac-12 champ with a chance to strengthen the resume over the final 3 weeks of the season, including the Pac-12 title game, makes it a tricky conversation. If it's a 1-loss Michigan team playing a close game in Columbus, I don't know, but I still think that Tennessee's resume would put the Vols over Michigan. So if you could pick a team to lose, I would pick TCU losing in the Big 12 title game if I'm Tennessee. If you can get TCU and USC to lose, then you should be golden if you're Tennessee.
Though there's still a path that TCU and Tennessee could be in together.
Yeah, I think for sure. And by the way, USC winning out, I think, is going to be really difficult because these are quality opponents, and winning 3 straight games against quality teams, pretty much no matter who you are. If Tennessee were in this position, it'd be really difficult to do. So USC's not great on defense. They are at quarterback, and that offense can go, and that's what's going to give USC a chance to be 12-1 and force the committee to make a tough decision potentially. But I like Tennessee's chances a lot to still be in the playoff. They've gotten help each of the last 2 Saturdays since the loss to Georgia. That night, the loss by Clemson and Alabama helped, and then Oregon's loss, of course. So I expect more help over the next 3 weeks.
Shifting gears here for the final question I've got for you. Ward Wednesday right here on Locked On Vols. Tennessee basketball, again, it's a November loss. It's not worth freaking out about. However, it looked atrocious, and Rick Barnes was not a happy camper after the game. Benching Zakai Ziegler, who will end up playing starter minutes still. But regardless, not a very good showing at Bridgestone Arena. What have you seen from Tennessee basketball so far this season?
Probably affected by the games that didn't count and how well Tennessee played there against Michigan State, a scrimmage that nobody saw, at least it was behind the scenes, and then the exhibition win against Gonzaga, which is one of the best teams in the country. Probably affected the team mentally. They're still figuring out lineup and rotation, and anytime, especially early in the season, you can have bad performances, bad shooting performances. You're maybe in an uncomfortable situation, which, by the way, you might be in the postseason in terms of a new arena, different setting in terms of trying to hit shots. So that can be a concern later in the year, but that really applies to everybody. I think once they figure out the starting lineup, but more importantly, as you're kind of alluding to, rotations, because whether Zakai starts or not, I don't think matters. He's going to probably play the same amount of minutes and will probably be in the game late. The mindset needs to be defense. I do wonder, do you have guys that can get to the basket? I think Julian Phillips and Josiah Jordan James need to be guys that can help in that regard. Shooting, I think, will take care of itself over the course of the season. And lineup, my lineup, by the way, I would go Key, Santiago Vescovi, Josiah Jordan James, Julian Phillips, and Olivia Kumwa, and I would have Urosh and Zakai as 2 very important players off the bench, and Jemai Mashak. But again, I think that'll all work itself out. The loss could hurt Tennessee's resume at the end of the season, but over the course of the season, I still bet on this Tennessee basketball team working everything out.
Oh, real quick, a bonus
Mhm.
question. Sorry, I'm keeping you over the time, but Lamonte Turner tweeted out yesterday. I'm sure you saw it. If not,
Yeah,
let me know and I'll pull it up.
I saw it.
Essentially saying, "I love Rick Barnes so much to disagree with him. That's not how you handle that situation." What do you think about Lamonte's tweet?
So I've long thought that if Rick Barnes is going to call out his players, and he's done that, which I think he also says to them behind the scenes. I don't think he says anything publicly that catches them off guard,
I
or
agree.
rarely is that the case. But I think Rick Barnes, even though he's the head coach and he's in charge, especially for guys that played for him for 4 or 5 years, they are within their right to express their honest opinions as well. And Lamonte's not necessarily wrong here. Zakai Ziegler is so tough mentally that I would be stunned if he is negatively affected by what Rick Barnes says about him in press conference settings. So personally, I think it's good for Tennessee basketball that you have that open dialogue. What it's about is the results. And if Tennessee doesn't win over the course of the season, Rick Barnes will get his criticism. That's just the way that it's going to go. And if they win, he'll get a ton of praise and the players will get that. But Zakai Ziegler knows he has to be tough to play point guard for Rick Barnes. And one thing I know for certain is that Zakai Ziegler is tough, so he'll be fine.
Yeah, he had that buffer there with Kennedy Chandler last year. Now it's
Mhm.
it's
I
all on
mean,
him. We know how
yeah,
Rick
he's
Barnes.
older and the expectations go up for him. So that's how it is. And Lamonte said, "I love Coach Barnes," and I think he means that too. So I don't think it's a big deal. It's notable for sure, and but to me tells you how things are behind the scenes. And I think it really is some kind of credit to the structure, to the culture of Tennessee basketball.
Tennessee basketball is in action tonight. Tennessee football is back in action in Columbia, South Carolina on Saturday, and you guys are in action the rest of this week, noon to 3. Josh and Swain on 99.1 The Sports Animal. What do you have coming up the rest of the week on the program?
Yeah, coverage of Tennessee, South Carolina. I think Tennessee will be perfectly fine. Swain will be on the sideline for the Vol Network, so he's getting ready for a trip to Columbia. But how are things going to play out? They will play themselves out, and we'll continue to follow to see if Tennessee will be just fine, because I think they will be.